Today, I will be taking you through the process of creating an epic DJ intro from start to finish. Now, what you're about to see might look really complicated, but it's actually a lot simpler than you might imagine, and I'm going to break it down for you in today's video. So, with that said, this is the intro. Okay, so I'm just going to jump into FL Studio here to show you what's going on in this project, starting with the ticking clock. Now this has a couple of effects on it. First of all, it has an EQ, just to remove some of the unnecessary low frequencies. It also has a delay of 3 notes, and it just sounds really cool in my opinion. And then a bit of reverb to make it sound a bit more atmospheric and to round everything off. And so altogether it sounds like this. Now the horns. So this is what really ties the track together and makes it sound so awesomely cinematic. And a lot of DJs will use these horns in their intros. So it sounds like this on its own. And I have a bit of automation of the volume to make the attack a bit more crisp. And I also have these orchestra hits, just to increase the attack again, and also just because on their own they sound a bit plain. And with the orchestra hits they sound less plain. And now the white noise. Now this is really interesting, because on its own we just have pretty boring, nothing especially interesting here, but we also have this. Now what this does, this is an LFO, so it increases and decreases the volume of this. I've also got an LFO speed automation, so that the gaps between the high and low peaks actually get bigger over time, so it sounds like this. And really you can see visually what's going on here. I also have some EQ automation on this, which I can't find at the moment, but altogether it sounds like this. And then finally these. I have an orchestra hit, layered with a kick, and then this massively reverbed snare and a thick clap. And it's just this kind of rolling loop, and it just keeps the rhythm going. And I have this deep, menacing Reese bass, or Reese bass, as I seem to have called it. It adds to the atmosphere a lot. Without it, it just sounds like this. It's nowhere near as interesting. And then I also have this string. It just gets a bit repetitive around this point, so I decided to spice things up with this. So yeah, that's about it for the intro. Now let's go back to the DJ decks. Okay, we are now back at the DJ decks, and I'm going to show you exactly what I would do to mix this intro into a track. So on deck 1, I have got the intro, and on deck 2, I have got Morris West and Saber Z's remix of Rhythm of the Night. And I chose this track because it has a massive drop. And that's exactly what you want with an intro, because the entire intro is basically a build-up to this one drop. So it had better be good. And I have a cue point here. And that's because I'm going to start this track playing in that position at a certain point in the intro. And then over that period, I'm going to gradually fade up this track. And then once I get to the build-up section of the Morris West track, I'm going to start fading down this one. So let's see exactly what that would sound like. Okay, so at the 5th horn, I'm going to start this track playing at the cue point that I set. This is horn number 1. Horn number 2. Horn number 3. Horn number 4. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is increase the volume on this one at the vocal phrase, the rhythm of the night. And I'm going to do that just because it fits really well with the intro, as you're about to see. And now we get to the build-up section, which is where I'm going to start fading out the intro and fade in the Morris West track to full volume. And that's what this would sound like. Okay, now time for some filter action. I'm going to be filtering up this track just to create more of the tension. Then I'm going to filter it right back down at the vocal phrase. I won't play any more of that because I'll get copyrighted, but you get the idea. This is how I would mix the intro into a track. And now a few final words before the end of the video. Okay, now for a few top tips from me of how you can make your intro as big and as good as possible. So first of all, you need to make sure that it's the same tempo and key as the track that you're going to be mixing into. It probably is possible to mix into a track with a different key or even a different BPM, but everything will just be so much more fluid, smooth and easy for you if you make sure that it's the same. Secondly, make sure that the duration of your intro matches the amount of the track that you're going to be mixing into. For example, before the build-up section, there are 8 bars where my intro and the track are playing concurrently, and then another 8 bars where I'm fading out the intro and fading in the Morris West track during the build-up. You need to know these kind of things so that you can get the lengths to match up. My final tip to you is to use some kind of regular counter in your track. Now, I took this to the extreme by literally using a ticking clock, but you don't have to use that. You could use cinematic drums, for example. It just has to be a regular beat that keeps everything in check, because that is the essence of the intro. If you enjoyed this video, then please do consider subscribing. It helps me out a lot. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.